Do you ever come home and find your filter not working in your aquarium? Is it time to panic? Stay tuned. Hey, this is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me again. So today we're going to talk about your filter going out and whether or not you need to panic. You know that day where you walk up to your tank and you are terrified because the water looks a little bit unclear. You notice that the filter is no longer going. The fish are going to the top of the water, seem to be gasping for air. So do you panic? If your fish are doing that, there's probably really no reason to panic, but you do need to move quickly. So you don't necessarily need to go out and hurry up and buy another filter. Right now you need to worry about getting your water oxygenized again. The main thing that you need to worry about is the bacteria cycle that's happening in your tank. That's where the fish waste, the ammonia, is being turned into nitrite, and then that nitrite is being turned into nitrate. That bacteria that lives down in your aquarium is on everything that's in there. So even though your filter is not going, you still have your substrate, your plants, the driftwood that you have in there, the glass, and even in the water column, you've still got that bacteria that's all over the place. But it's suffering right now because it's not getting the oxygen that it needs. It needs oxygen to be able to do the conversion from the ammonia, which is the fish waste, into the nitrite and then into the nitrate. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to get some air moving in the water once again. So I would suggest that you always have a simple air pump and an air stone and some air line laying around at all times. It's even better maybe to have one that is one of the battery powered type ones. That way if you don't have any electricity, you can always use a battery powered one. But you know those pumps, you can see some like at Walmart, they're like $5 or $10. Very, very cheap. They're not designed to do a lot, but they'll do what you need in that minute. So simply take that pump and that air stone, hook it up into the water and get that air going again. That way you get the oxygen to the bacteria that is really needed. So you got that going now. You're getting some oxygen back in the water. You're seeing your fish start to look a little bit better. So what's the next thing you need to do? Again, before you go out and buy another filter, which you obviously need to, maybe it's your hang on the back filter that broke, maybe it's your canister filter, or maybe something simply happened with your sponge filters where they're not getting any air. So what do you need to do next? So the next best thing to do is, let's say you have a hang on the back filter or a canister filter, is to remove some of the media that's in that canister or that hang on the back filter. Granted, if it's really, really dirty, you want to take some tank water outside of the tank and wash that stuff off and get a lot of that detritus off there. You don't want to pour that back into the tank. But take that media and pour it back into the tank and let it sit in there. If it's a hang on the back filter, you want to take that pad that's in the back of it and just kind of throw it into the tank. And that way it provides a little bit more of that bacteria that's in there. But it's best to take whatever that material is, whether it's like bio rings or whatever it is that you use, and put them really, really close that you can to that air stone so that oxygen is generating through that material, so it begins that cycle again, so that you don't start having a lot of the bacteria die off, because that's when you're going to have these massive ammonia spikes, is when you have too much bacterial die off. So if your filter's been down for many, many, many days, it can be a lot more of a panic type situation because your ammonia would be spiking because a lot of that bacteria is starting to die off. But if it's only been a day or so, it's not a big deal at all. You've got plenty of time to get another filter. Now another thing that you want to do is you want to reduce the bio load on the tank. And no, I don't mean necessarily taking fish out of there, but stop feeding them for a while. Now your fish can easily go 3 days without any type of food. So if you want, just stop feeding them, and that way they won't be able to produce any waste. There won't be any ammonia produced in the water hardly at all. So therefore the amount of bacteria that's needed to convert that ammonia to nitrite, then to nitrate, there's not as much needed, because you probably has had some die off because of the lack of the oxygenation or the oxygen getting to those microbes that are needed there. So another good idea is to have some type of redundancy in your system. You'll notice in a lot of my 40-gallon tanks, I have 2 sponge filters going in there, and they're some of the bigger type Hydro 5 sponge filters that I use, and you really don't need 2 of them in the aquarium, but I like to have 2 in there in case one gets clogged or there's a problem with one. I know that the other one is always going. And so another thing that I have is I have 2 pumps. As you'll see here, I have 2 centralized pumps. That way if one of them stops working, the other one is still going, and then I don't have any problems whatsoever. So something that you can do is you might keep an extra sponge filter in your tank, even if you're running a hang on the back. So maybe you could have like your hang on the back maybe you're using, and then have a sponge filter in there also. Or instead of buying a big hang on the back filter, maybe buy 2 small ones. That way if you have one go out, the other one's still going. Because first of all, I don't use any hang on the backs. I'm not a big fan of them. Because I don't trust them terribly, because I've heard so many stories of those things breaking and just going out. About the only time I'll ever use them is I'll use them to run on my tanks to try to keep the tank clean. So I'll just put them on there for maybe a day, run them for about 24 hours, put some floss in there just to clean them up. But other than that, I really don't use hang on the backs at all in my fish room. All right, so let's go back over it again. The most important thing you need to do when your filter goes out is get oxygen in the water to begin to feed those microbes again, so that conversion of the ammonia to nitrite into nitrate continues on. That's the most important thing. That way that'll buy you some time to be able to get yourself another filter and get it set up again. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little something. If you guys got any questions, be sure to leave them down below. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.